Okay, so the students asked me to discuss the third passage from the test number 5 of official guide. So specifically the multiple choice questions, they are a bit confusing, right, for the students. So they should understand how each of the options must be understood. Is there any lack of understanding of exact meaning of the relevant information from the passage? So you can dispel all of your doubts by this video with regard to this, this passage. Science in Space, test number 5, passage number 3. This can be seen on the page. Okay, the page number is 239 from the official guide. Right. So before we move on to questions, let's understand, meaning of each of the sentences. So the first paragraph, the premier world class please. A premier world-class laboratory in low Earth orbit. So it's basically a phrase. So consider it's a subheading or a title, something of that sort. It's not a full sentence at all. So it gives a sense like the International Space Station (ISS) is like a very important and top quality science lab uh, that revolves close to Earth in space. In space. That's how you can understand this. That was how the National Aeronautics and Space Administration Agency NASA sold the International Space Station ISS to the US Congress in 2001. So you can understand this like, in 2001 NASA, which is the space agency of United States, right, told the US government that the ISS is very special and important science lab to get their support and money to build and maintain it, right? They wanted to get support from the US government. So today no one can doubt the agency's technological ambition, right? Now everyone knows that NASA has big dreams and plans for using advanced technology in their space projects, right? And the most complex engineering project ever attempted has created an enormous means, great set of interlinked modules that orbits the planet at more than 27,000 kilometers per hour. So it's just give a meaning like the ISS, which is the complex project that anyone has ever tried to do, is made of big, connected parts that travel very fast around the Earth. So simply, that's how you can understand it. So finally, so far it might be traveling fast, but say critics, as a lab, it is going nowhere. So far, it has gone through 150 billion. Okay. So some people who give their opinions, say that even though the ISS is moving fast around the Earth, it is not achieving, as much as all the people are expecting, or not achieving much as a science lab. as much as a science lab should achieve, should do. So far it has gone through 150 billion means. So up until now it has cost 150 billion to build and use that particular ISS for its maintenance, for its works and all. It costed almost 150 billion so far. So the next paragraph. So as I have been explaining its meaning, exact meaning, so that you can check your understanding whether you have understood in the same way or not. So that's where you can point out, the discrepancies in your understanding. You might have understood some sentences wrongly. You might not be able to understand some sentences meaning exactly. Okay, so this explanation help you, in that regards. So where should its future priorities lie? So this question asks that what the most important things are that International Space Station should focus on in next. This question was addressed at the recent first annual ISS Research and Development Conference in Colorado, right? Okay, the people talked about what the ISS should focus on at a big meeting in Colorado. It was the first time they held this meeting, first annual, ISS Research. So the next one among the presenters was Satoshi Iwais of Aichi Medical University in Japan, who has spent several years developing an experiment that could help solve one of the key problems that humans will face in space. Okay, keeping our bodies healthy in weightlessness, right? So, one of the speakers, Satoshi, Iwais from a university in Japan, has been working for many years on the special test, to help keep astronauts healthy when they float in the space where there is no gravity, when they take part in ISS, right? Where there is no gravity, there might be problems. They should be able to handle the weightlessness that can cause unhealthy, that is unhealthful for them. So he has come up with an idea. So one thing that physiologists, one thing that physiologists have learned is that without gravity, our bodies begin to lose strength, leaving astronauts with weakened bones. Okay, if there is no weight, obviously their body is going to be weakened, right? Muscles, cardiovascular systems are going to be, debilitated. So scientists who study the body have, found that if there is no gravity, these physiologists generally who study human body, so they have found that if there is no gravity, like in space, our bodies start to get weaker, and astronauts can end up with soft bones. Bones are going to be soft, and the strongness is going to be deteriorated. Weak muscles, they can end up with weak muscles, and so that particular cardiovascular system doesn't work as well. It won't work properly. Heart and blood system won't work properly. To counter to counter these effects on a long duration mission to Mars, astronauts will almost certainly need to create their own artificial gravity. So, okay, to stop these problems, to prevent these problems, to overcome these problems on a long space trip, like going to Mars, astronauts will need to make artificial gravity, a new gravity, created gravity, fake gravity. Okay. This is where Iwais comes in. So this is the part where Santoshi Iwais and his work become, important, has got a place, right? He leads the team designing centrifuges for humans, and in their preliminary design, an astronaut is strapped into a seat of machine that resembles an exercise bike. Okay, so the Satoshi is in charge of a group, right? He leads the team, no? In charge of a group that is making special machine called centrifuge, which can create this artificial gravity for the astronauts. So in that preliminary design, the astronaut is trapped. Okay, he's going to be tied to a seat within the ISS. So while research stage, they may create artificial no gravity situation, and they may experiment on different people, right? Okay, but it may not be possible as we, as spectators think, right? So in this preliminary design, in this first design, the machine looks like a bike that you exercise on, and the astronaut sits and is tied up onto it, buckled up onto it. So pedaling provides a workout for the astronaut's muscles and cardiovascular system, but it also causes the seat to rotate vertically around the central axis, so the rider experiences artificial gravity while exercising. Okay, it gives the sense that when the astronauts starts pedaling, it helps them exercise their muscles and heart, but the seat also spins around in circle, in vertical direction, in vertical circle, which makes the astronaut feel like there is a gravity. They feel it's a fake gravity. They start experiencing that artificial gravity, just like on Earth, while they are actually exercising by this particular, bike. Yeah. The next one, the centrifuge project highlights the station's potential as a research lab. Okay, so the project using the spinning machine shows how the space station can be a great place for science experiments, making use of the centrifuge project, right? Similar machines have flown in space aboard NASA's shuttles, but they couldn't be tested for long enough to provide whether they were effective. Okay, so machines like this, centrifuge have been sent to space on NASA space shuttles before. Okay, it was the set of things were already done previously, but they didn't stay there long enough to check if they really worked well or not. So to check them, they must be placed in the particular ISS long enough. That must be checked by the astronauts. Astronauts should tied, should buckled up, the equipment, and that must be tested on astronauts, right? Yeah. So, but they didn't stay there long enough, to check if uh, these machines really worked well or not. It has been calculated that to properly uh, assess centrifuges, impact on human physiology, astronauts would have to ride it for 30 minutes a day, at least for 2 months. Okay, this is the time. Even to test the centrifuge's impact, centrifuge benefit, the astronaut should actually ride it for 30 minutes a day for at least 2 months. Right? Scientists have understood that to really understand how this spinning machine, centrifuge, affects the human body, how it is beneficial for astronauts, they need to use it for 30 minutes every day for 2 whole months. Right? The only way to test this is in weightlessness, and the only this is weightlessness, and the only time we have to do that on the space station. Okay, even to test that centrifuge, that must be done in the ISS, says Lawrence Young, a space medicine expert at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Okay, so Lawrence Young, okay, who is actually medicine expert, so works at a big school called Massachusetts Institute of Technology, says that the best place to do this test is in space, where there is no gravity, and the space station is the perfect place for it. That must be done in the space station, ISS. There are certainly plenty of ideas for other experiments, but many projects have yet to fly. There are a lot of ideas for science experiments in space, but many of these ideas haven't been tried out yet in the ISS, right? So, okay, even if the centrifuge project gets the green light, yes, it has got a positive response from the organizers, from the ISS staff or NASA staff. It will have no wait another 5 years. It will have to wait another 5 years before the station's crew can make a spin. Right. So even if the spinning machine, the centrifuge project is approved, it will be 5 more years before the astronauts on the space station can actually use it. Okay. So the lengthy delays, these sort of lengthy delays like this are one of the key challenges for NASA, according to an April 2011 report from the US National Academy of Sciences. Okay. So a report from a group of experts in 2011, in April 2011, said that these long waits are a big problem for NASA, which is the space agency of United States, right? Yeah. Its authors said they were deeply concerned about the state of NASA's science research, made a number of recommendations. Okay, so the people, you know, who gave, who has given a report, were actually worried about how NASA's science work was doing, how the NASA's research was being done, and they gave some advices on how to make it better, to streamline their efforts, to ameliorate, their endeavors and all. Besides suggesting the agency, besides suggesting that the agency reduces the time between approving experiments and sending them into space, it also recommended setting clearer research priorities. Okay, it also recommended setting clearer research priorities. Okay, the advice actually is making the time shorter between, when experiments are approved and when they are sent into space, and also making it clearer which science project should be done first. So what kind of projects must be prioritized over the others. So these things have clearly been mentioned by the particular report, April 2011 report. Yes. Next. The NASA has already begun to take action hiring management consultants, pro orbis, to develop a plan to cut through the bureaucracy. Okay, there might be some official proceedings, right, that must be reduced to reduce the time. So NASA has already started making changes by hiring a company, organization, company, or a team called Pro Orbis, right? Their job is to make a plan that helps NASA work faster and more efficiently without getting slowed down by too many rules and paperwork. That is actually part of bureaucracy. And Congress also directed NASA to hire an independent organization, Center for Advancement of Science in Space, to help manage the station's US lab facilities. Okay, the United States Congress, which is part of government, told NASA to get help from a separate group called CASIS. So its job is to help take care of the science labs on the space station, and that are generally run by the USA. So one of CASIS role is to convince public and private investors that science on the station is worth spend. Okay, so to encourage, to promote these space research, and making the people aware of that spending on science research is actually worth and definitely bring some benefits or something. CS needs to show people and companies who are interested to spend, who might spend money on the space station, and making them to believe that it's a good investment. They have to do this because if you only look at, you know, because judged solely by the number of papers published, and the ISS certainly seems poor value. And the research on the station has generated about 3100 papers since 1998. Okay, so CS have to show people and companies uh, who is ready to spend money on the space station that spending on the space research is really a good investment. And this CASIS have to do this because if you only look at how many research papers the ISS has made since 1998, so based on solely how many research papers uh, administered or, you know, created by ISS, that won't encourage the people to invest in, which is about 3100. It doesn't seem like a lot, not enough, which promote, which encourage the people, which excite the people to invest in this space research. So there is a comparison with the Hubble space. So Hubble Space Telescope meanwhile has produced more than 11,300 papers in just 20 years. Okay, in comparison with Hubble Space Telescope, ISS has not got good number of, you know, papers since 1998 on their, you know, space researches. Yet it costs less than 1/10 of the price of the space station. Okay, right. So meanwhile, the Hubble Space Telescope, another space project, has created more than 11,300 research papers in, you know, uh, within 20 years. Okay, papers within 20 years, and was much cheaper than the ISS, you know, other projects, costing less than 1/10 as much, right? This comparison makes it, you know, look like the ISS has not been as good of a deal. It doesn't make the people to invest in ISS projects. If they look at Hubble Space Telescope, if they have knowledge about Hubble Space Telescope, that there are 11,300 papers about Hubble Space Telescope, and in lesser, in within only 20 years, the investors, you know, think of it, right? Because only 3100 papers by the ISS since 1998. So they may even uh, think about it whether to invest in space research or not. If they look at Hubble space, if they compare ISS number of papers, you know, with Hubble space papers, you know, created. So at Mark Uhran, Assistant Associate Administrator for ISS, refutes the criticism that the station hasn't done any useful research. Okay, so there is another one, you know, Mark Uhran, who helps to manage the ISS, disagrees with the people who say the space station hasn't done good work at all. So he has his own reasons. He points to the progress made on, you know, Salmonella vaccine. There is a vaccine that was actually contributed by the efforts of ISS. For example, to get the ISS research back on track, CASAS has examined more than 100 previous microgravity experiments to identify promising research themes. Okay, so this Ukhran gives an example of space stations' good work by mentioning how they have helped develop a vaccine to fight salmonella, you know, the type of bacteria that can make people, you know, sick, right? And to improve the research done on the ISS, the organization CASAS checked through over 100 older experiments done in space where there is a very little gravity, you know, to find the best topics to study. So promising research themes in that particular microgravity environment. So they have checked other 100 previous experiments. So to pick a better one, somehow that can make beneficial, that can bring out some benefits or bring out some beneficial effects to the ISS research. From this, it has opted to focus on life sciences. Okay, as they have gone through previous experiments, they have come up with life science projects, kind of life science projects, and medical research, and recently called for means make something necessary proposals for experiments on muscle wasting, osteoporosis, and immune system. Okay, so it's a medical terminology. From what they learned, CASIS learned, so it decided to concentrate on studying, living organisms and medicine. They have come up with medicinal projects that is going to be better for ISS. They asked for new ideas for experiments about how muscles get weaker, bones become fragile, and how the body fights off germs. Right? So CASS is selected to focus on life science and medical research, and they want to, focus on how muscles become weaker, bones can become fragile, and how the body fights off germs. The organization also maintains that the ISS should be used to develop products with commercial application and to test those that there are either close to or already on the project. Okay. So CSS also believes that ISS should be used to make and test products that can be sold in the market, and are almost ready to be sold. Okay, so ISS should be used to develop some products which has commercial value that can be sold in the market. They have to concentrate on commercial application that are about to get into the market, right? Almost close to the market, are already in the market. So whatever products in the market, right, they must be developed and they must be tested to get some commercial value. So, that should be ISS should be used to make, and also not only to develop, but also to test products that can be sold, right? That can have commercial value in the market and are almost ready to be sold. So investments from outside organizations is vital, says Ukran, and the balance between academic and commercial research will help attract this. Okay. So Mark Uhran again says that it's very important for, the people outside of NASA to put money into ISS projects, right? So he also thinks having a good mix of, you know, a kind of research, okay, mix of academic research, and the research that can make money will help bring in these investments. Commercial research means that can be sold in the market, that can have some commercial value, that can bring some money, will help attract us, help bring in these investments. The station needs to attract cutting edge means modern research, yet many scientists seem to have little idea what goes on about it. Yeah. So this space station should be doing the newest and most advanced science experiments. Okay, but many students don't really, many scientists don't really know what experiments are currently being done there. Okay, many scientists seem to have little idea what's going on in ISS, right? So we have JD, let me call them JD. So JD at Pro Orbis conducted more than 200 interviews with people from organizations with potential interest in low gravity studies. Okay, some were aware of the ISS, but they don't know what's going on up there. So this JD who works at Pro Orbis. So spoken with over 200 people from different groups that might be, interested in studying space. Okay, where things, okay, because they are, okay, he has understood that there is hardly, they understood that, okay, that particular JD found out that some of these people knew about the space station. They know that space station was there, revolves around around our Earth, but didn't know exactly what kinds of experiments are happening there. They don't know about it. What's going on up there? Others know there is a science, but they don't know what kind. Okay, others know. So what does this mean? So he or she also, who is he? That JD also discovered that other people knew that scientific experiments are being done on the space station, but they were not sure about the, what specific types of science researchers being studied there. They don't know exactly what kind of things are going on ISS. Some people don't know what's going on in ISS. Some people know some experiments are going on, but they don't know what exactly the experiments are. According to Alan Stern, planetary scientist, the biggest public relations boost for ISS may come from the privately funded space flight industry. Okay, there might be private industries, right? For example, SpaceX. Okay, so Alan Stern, thinks that private companies that send rockets to space, who sends rockets to space, might help more people get excited about the International Space Station and make them to invest in space research. So they can attract more investors. So companies like SpaceX could help NASA and its partners when it comes to resupplying the ISS. As it suggests, it can reduce launch cost by 2/3. Okay, companies such as SpaceX might be able to help NASA by providing supplies to the ISS. And they say they can do this much cheaper, cutting the cost of sending things to space by 2/3. If we involve the private people like SpaceX in the space research to collaborate with ISS, the costs are going to be reduced by 2/3. And there is another, so Virgin Atlantic Spaceship 2 or Zero to Infinity high altitude balloon could also boost the space station's fortunes. Okay, there might be other schemes or other private things. So other technologies like Virgin Atlantic spacecraft and Zero to Infinity's balloon, uh, also help make the ISS more successful. So this cooperation is necessary for ISS success. They might not come close to the ISS orbit, yet Stern believes they will revolutionize the way the public see space. So even though these technologies don't go as high the ISS, these private things may not be, as technological advanced as ISS, but somehow they can help if they collaborate with ISS. Even though these technologies don't go as high as the ISS, the Stern believes they will change how regular people think about the space. Definitely, they can change the perception of the public if the private people involved in the research of ISS. Soon, everyone will be dreaming of interplanetary, travel again. He predicts. So Stern thinks that the soon more people will start to dream about traveling from one planet to another, right? More importantly, he predicts. More importantly, scientists are already queuing for seats on these low gravity spaceflight services so they can collect data during. Okay, scientists' work is different, no? It's not like general public. Scientists, why do they fly? They need to collect some data, you know, which may be useful for their further research, right? Weightlessness. So more importantly, scientists are waiting in line, to get a chance to fly on these space services to do experiments in the few minutes of weightlessness, right? Few minutes. In the few minutes when they can float without gravity. So in the few minutes of weightlessness, they collect some data that may be useful for their further research, something of that sort. That's why they are in queue. They're waiting for the opportunity when they may get a chance to spend in the zero gravity environment. Somehow they can experience, they collect some data, and that benefits for their research career, further research, right? Yeah. So this demand for low cost space flight could eventually lead to a service running on more frequent basis, giving researchers the chance to test their ideas before submitting a proposal for experiments on the ISS. So because many people wants affordable space flights, there might be more flights available soon if they collaborate with the private people, right? This would let scientists try out their ideas in space before they ask, if they can do bigger experiments on the ISS, right? For their bigger researchers, okay, they can try out their ideas in space. So getting flight experience should help them win a slot on the station. Okay. So Sten says that having experience flying to space definitely help these scientists get a chance to do their experiments on the space station, right? So here ends the explanation of the passage. So we may have to do another video for the explanation of all the questions following this passage. So this is just explanatory video of the passage. In the next video, in the next part, we will discuss questions and answers of the this passage. Science in the space.